Good evening. This evening, I'm going to be talking about you. How you can be a more wholesome person, how you can be happy, and how you can live out your life to its full potential. When God created you, He made you special, He made you unique, and there is no one else on planet Earth who's like you. And yet, there are times when we are okay on the outside. We look good on the outside, but we are not feeling good on the inside. When I was a student in university, my subject was sociology. That is the study of man and society. And in my course, I had to read a book. And that book was called, I'm Okay If You're Okay. And what that book really means is that if I'm doing well, and if I am good with you, and if my relationship with you is good, if my interpersonal transactions with you is good, then you will also be good to me. Many times people don't have great relationships with their loved ones, even people close to them like their spouses, with their children, with their parents. And I always believe that for you to have a healthy relationships around you and to also feel healthy on the inside, your inner man, the real you, the inner you has to be well. There has to be a certain wellness about you on the inside, the way you feel about yourself, the way you feel when you wake up every morning. Are you a person who's ruled by your moods, or are you a person who wakes up on even keel? Does your boat capsize very often? Do you get into dark, deep times of depression and anger, jealousy, fits of rage, and unforgiveness? There are times that you have a fallout with someone, and then it keeps on playing in your mind over and over again what that person said. And then hatred builds up, anger builds up, frustration builds up. And then finally you end up unable to forgive the person who slighted you. But very often you don't realize that when you hold grudges, when you hold unforgiveness in your heart, when you have unresolved issues with people, it damages you more than it damages the other person. Because the other person doesn't know what you're feeling and is not affected by the kind of corrosion that happens in your soul. But you are the one who's bearing this every day. This eats into your inner man, into your mind, into your peace. And finally you are so tainted by it that everything around you doesn't look good anymore. You may feel that you have control over yourself, but then without your knowledge, you become short-tempered, you become irritable, you become moody. The way that you interact with people is sometimes rude. And then you start turning out to be someone who people really want to keep a distance with. And all of a sudden, you may realize that actually you are not really okay. And because you're not okay, people around you are not okay with you. But many people go through life not really realizing that sometimes we need to get rid of this excess baggage that we are carrying. There are times that we need to really sit down and take stock of who we really are. We need to look deep into our own hearts and see if there is unforgiveness in our hearts. Is there jealousy, envy? Or do we have these sudden spurts of anger that we have no control over? Because all this stems from deep issues that are inside of you. Issues of low self-esteem, issues because you're always envying somebody or are jealous of someone else's promotion, always wanting something that somebody else has. And you look very, very rarely at your own plate. You look very, very rarely to see what God actually has really given you. Because many times, God may have given you so many good things, but because you're wearing blue glass, the blue glass of jealousy and envy and unforgiveness, and your attitudes turn critical and your heart is bitter towards people, sometimes people who are closest to you, it mars everything for you first. And then it mars everything for people who are closest to you. And this is a time to actually take a rain check. It's time to just sit back and look deep into your own heart and introspect. And if you have unforgiveness and you are upset with someone and you can't just let go of it, it's good to just decide and will to let go. Because once you make up your mind and you decide that you want to let go, your emotions will finally follow your will. And letting people off the hook will actually make your heart a lot lighter. And if you have this attitude of always wanting to keep up with somebody else and you want to look into somebody else's plate to see what he has, then I think it's time that you started looking at the little things and the big things that God has done for you. And that will make you a more contented person, a more happy person. And another way of getting out of your black moods is also to look at those people who are less fortunate than you. Like that story goes about a man who was upset that he didn't have a pair of shoes. And then he saw someone who was crippled and who didn't have a foot that was working right and who was limping. Then he thought to himself, I'm better off, at least my feet are good and I've got two good feet that I can walk with, even if I don't have shoes to walk with. It's always good if you start making it a habit to wake up in the morning and start thanking God for just the ability to breathe, the ability to move your limbs, to have loving relationships around you, to have maybe a spouse in your bed or children running around in your home. Or if you're single, then it's good if you can just start having meaningful relationships in your life. Maybe with your neighbor who you've never stopped by to say hello. Or maybe you can just go and, share something that you have with somebody who doesn't have. a meal, maybe if you can just share what you have in your own kitchen, maybe some rice, some dal, some pickle, to your watchman who's hungry, or the person who comes to clean your home. If you just say, hey, why don't you just eat something? I've got something left over in my refrigerator and I can't eat the whole thing. If you can share it with somebody else and bring a smile on somebody else's lips, then I think life will start becoming more and more meaningful. The most unhappy people on this earth are people who are selfish. People who just want to live only for themselves. Unfortunately, today with so much of kinds of things that we see on media that keeps encouraging you about, taking care of yourself, and you do this for yourself, and you need your time and my me time, and I don't want this one stepping on my toes, and all those things. We are so caught up with our own little lives. And when we start becoming selfish, something inside of our hearts actually withers and shrinks. If you notice, you will see that people who are generous are people who always laugh, and people who are happy. But people who are stingy and mean and who don't want to share, those are people who actually end up sad and lonely and bitter. I think it's important, like I said, it's important to look inside, to introspect, to measure yourself and see where you really stand. And as long as we have life and breath in our nostrils, there is always time to make a U-turn, and we'll always have opportunities to make history. So this week, ask yourself whether you are comfortable in your own skin. When you put your head on the bed, are you peaceful? Are you happy? Do you have a smile on your face? And when you wake up, do you wake up with a song on your lips? Because if you wake up moody and angry and feeling desperate and lonely, it's time to change the way you've been living, and time to open the door and step out and maybe make a friend and make some course corrections inside of your heart so that you can live the way that you were really meant to live by the Creator who formed you.